today. Now, I have a lot of people that are studying for the California baby bar right now, and I wanted to talk about a law that was recently passed, or not passed, a ruling. Okay, so the law is made up of legislative laws, right? And then it's also made up of court-made laws within the United States of America. And then it's broken down further into states. So I wanted to talk about this law that has everybody up in arms, or this decision concerning a prior case, Roe versus Wade. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I've noticed a lot of sensationalism in the news and a lot of people getting overly worked up about this and fighting each other and going out and getting charged up and going out and demonstrating. And people have been demonstrating about this issue for years, saying it's there are people on both sides saying that it's wrong. And then there's science that's going on saying, hey, look, hey, we have scientific evidence now. Hey, if you have a baby really early, it can live. We can bring it back to life. We can put it on monitors, lung machines, feed it with tubes, all kinds of stuff. So what happens is that this case came up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to, I started to prepare this, but really I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm trying to use a sense of humor here, because what happens is that people need to look at the light side of things, even if they're really a dark sense of humor, right? We can get a dark sense of humor, which is going to suck you in, and you're like, oh my God, that's just inappropriate. Well, it's about faith and delusions and rulers. And what do you do when you're not in charge and you see a ruling you don't like? Power, influence, authority. Who has power over who? Well, we know, maybe we don't know, but there's different opinions about what's going on. So I just thought I would throw a little humor on this fire that's burning. A lot of people are lit over this, to use a pun. So what do I mean by on fire, lit up? They're having visceral reactions to decisions that are being made, and there's power, influence, and authority. We have the United States of America. We have a decision that was made by the courts. Now, I'm going to take you over to Oyez. I love Oyez. It's and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Constitution, although I'll be honest with you, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and I know some constitutional lawyers that are on this YouTube. For example, the Durr Show is by a guy that was a professor in criminal law and also with constitutional law, very well versed. Go to his channel, he'll talk about different cases, he'll give his opinion, but he'll also break it down and he'll show the bits and pieces of the law and nuggets about it. You don't have to agree with him. So, okay, here we are. There's always differing opinions about what's right, what's wrong, who's in charge, the whole 9 yards, right? Anyway, this meme was going around, and I just snatched it because I thought it was kind of appropriate for a joke. It's not mine. I didn't author it. So let's jump over to Oyez. Now, so we're going to talk about some nuances in the law, and we're going to talk about how when you're doing law or studying law, there are a lot of things, a lot of details, a lot of arguments, a lot of interpretations. Okay? So here is the case. This is the case that was decided. They have not uploaded the oral arguments or the arguments anything further. But here's the facts of the case, okay? Because I want you to listen to the facts of the case. It's very important that you use your brain and don't get a visceral reaction, but take a deep breath and think about the reality of what's going on. Okay, you have a heavy-duty organization that's part of a network of organizations that deal in a certain type of, in particular, a certain type of health care for females that are born female, that are in their reproductive years and or beyond, because they give people stuff for STDs, I think, and checkups. So this organization's called the Jackson Women's Health Organization et al. Et al. So what does that mean? And others. Okay, so this organization brought a case all the way to the Supreme Court because the state of Mississippi has a law regarding termination of viable pregnancies or babies 15 weeks or older, except in the case where the woman's health is at risk, or the baby is, or the fetus is in some sort of deformity, or it's already dead, or it's got a health problem. Okay, so let's take a look at the facts of the case. So you have these different citations. They argued it already, and this is the facts of the case in a nutshell. In 2018, Mississippi passed a law called the Gestational Act, which prohibits all abortions with few exceptions after 15 weeks gestational age. The few exceptions I just mentioned. Jackson's Women's Health Organization, the only licensed facility in Mississippi to perform these operations, and one of its doctors filed a lawsuit in federal district court challenging the law and requesting an emergency temporary restraining order. In other words, they wanted people to have access beyond 15 weeks. And after the hearing, the district court granted the temporary restraining order while the litigation proceeded to discovery. After discovery, the district court granted the clinic's motion for summary judgment and enjoined Mississippi from enforcing the law, finding that the state had not provided evidence that a fetus would be viable at 15 weeks. And Supreme Court precedent prohibits states from banning abortions prior to viability. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit affirmed. Now here's the question of law, okay? Let's say you're taking an essay exam. If Mississippi's law banning nearly all abortions after 15 weeks gestational age, is it unconstitutional? And what do you think the answer was? They said, no, it's not unconstitutional. Now, if you want, you can hear the oral arguments that started the whole thing.
We will hear argument this morning in Case 19-1392, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. General Stewart.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the Court. Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey haunt our country. They have no basis in the Constitution. They have no home in our history or traditions. They've damaged the democratic process. They've poisoned the law. They've choked off compromise. For 50 years, they've kept this court at the center of a political battle that it can never resolve. And 50 years on, they stand alone. Nowhere else does this court recognize a right to end a human life. Consider this case. The Mississippi law here prohibits abortions after 15 weeks. The law includes robust exceptions for a woman's life and health. It leaves months to obtain an abortion. Yet the courts below struck the law down. It didn't matter that the law applies when an unborn child is undeniably human, when risks to women surge, and when the common abortion procedure is brutal. The lower courts held that because the law prohibits abortions before viability, it is unconstitutional no matter what. Roe and Casey's core holding, according to those courts, is that the people can protect an unborn girl's life when she just barely can survive outside the womb, but not any earlier when she needs a little more help. That is the world under Roe and Casey. That is not the world the Constitution promises. The Constitution places its trust in the people. On hard issue after hard issue, the people make this country work. Abortion is a hard issue. It demands the best from all of us, not a judgment by just a few of us. When an issue affects everyone, and when the Constitution does not take sides on it, it belongs to the people. Roe and Casey have failed, but the people, if given the chance, will succeed. This court should overrule Roe and Casey and uphold the state's law. I welcome the court's questions.
General Stewart, you focus on the right to...
Okay, so this is where you can hear it. I'm going to put the link below. It goes on for an hour, almost 2 hours. Now, a lot of people are scared. They're afraid this law is going to open the door to other cases coming up. And there are people that are prodding Ivanka Trump. I don't know if they're making stuff up or not. This was posted on Twitter claiming or insinuating that Ivanka, one of her teenage friends when she was a teenager, went and had the procedure done. Now, of course, when you're under 18, you cannot consent. I don't know how many teenagers have done this, but I would bet that the practice is overwhelmingly done on teenagers. But I could be wrong. It could be also middle-aged housewives with 7 kids. I don't know. So, what business is it of ours? Well, here's the thing. The Constitution is one of those things that was framed by people that went way before us. And we honor our forefathers. For example, Benjamin Franklin, before they had these procedures that they have now, he was into milfs. He wanted people to have, he wrote letters. I took American literature, and he said, hey, go with someone who's older. They'll be more appreciative, they'll be more level-headed, and on top of it, they're probably not fertile. Hence, they'll be ever grateful. He even goes so far as to say, put a basket over the woman's head. Because from the waist down, you can't tell the difference anyway. But anyway, we're talking about power over individuals, right? We're talking about human rights, to whatever. So, do we have a right to privacy? Is that written in the Constitution? Can someone go back and have an ex post facto law and prosecute you for something that you did or something when the law was different? For example, let's take Jeffrey Epstein, for example. During the 70s, The world was a lot different. They didn't even have the EPA. You know what the EPA is, right? The Environmental Protection Agency. There were lists and lists of endangered species dying from pollutions, and all of the states uh, were, you know, going through all this stuff. And during this time, there was what was called a sexual revolution. They had the pill, the birth control pill. You take your American history about women's rights, and they liberated women. They had a book called Our Body, Ourselves. They had Ms. Magazine. And they told young girls they could be full-grown women without the responsibilities. I watched a movie by the author of this, or the founder of this magazine, Gloria Steinem. I found the video very interesting that she did. It was a Amazon Prime video that she did, and it shows you what the times were like back then. Gloria had a young life. It appears her mother had some sort of mental illness or something, or maybe substance abuse problem, and her mother did not want her to get stuck, and they forfeited a lot to pay for the education. That was the implication of the video. But I forget the name of the movie too. Okay, so this is a live stream. Now, I know you might be saying, well, you're one of those liberals. Well, I'll tell you right now what I am. I am calm and cool and collected. I do not think that I have a right to decide what your religion's going to be. I don't think I have the right to decide how your medical care choices are going to be. But when what I do think about is ethics, and I think about context. Now, the Constitution has context written into it, but they make exceptions. There's exceptions for everything. And a lot of times people have been learning from what they're seeing a little bit here and there about the law, what they're seeing in the paper. They're like, can somebody go get my medical records? Are they going to, if a prosecutor wants to prosecute everybody that's ever had this procedure and put them in jail people are getting scared. And the question the answer to the question might not be that simple, because the law is not that straightforward. And why did I bring up Epstein? Because that's exactly what's not that straightforward. During the time of the 70s, the world was a lot different. There were, back in the 1920s and 30s, you will hear about these May-December relationships between men and women, where men go out with children. It used to be legal to marry children in the United States. Now, people are protesting it. This is terrible. They're doing it overseas. They're arranging marriages. That is like states' rights in a sense, because what's happening is, as you grow, as you learn, as you evolve, you discover things like, hey, that's not developmentally appropriate for a child. But people keep doing it. So the reason I brought up Epstein was, back then, it was a different time. You can watch that Gloria movie, and you can think about how this male privilege was very predominant, and women were objectified. But the thing that I really find so upsetting about all this is that the objectification continues. The mass media has newscasters, people putting on tons of makeup, wearing low-cut blouses, objectifying themselves. They're saying, "Oh, it's sexy. Go look at Kim Kardashian." They're saying this is okay because we're allowed to be sexual. Well, if we're gonna be sexual, isn't that an intimate thing? Shouldn't that be in the bedroom? What kind of moral high ground are you on? So essentially, there's things called open relationships, and there was all this, I guess, this revolution that went on, from what I understand. And young girls, they had these Planned Parenthoods all over, and young girls were given sex ed, and they were given birth control pills. They were told about STDs. There was no AIDS. AIDS did not come on the scene until the 80s, 1980s. And you had trafficking. And you had girls being blamed. Or they even trafficked boys. There was a thing called NAMBLA. I don't know if it's still around. But what I'm saying is, it's not right. And so they're still around. They're still around. These are children. Now, can you get in trouble for doing something to someone too young to consent? Yes. Even if it was common practice back in the 1970s. Even if there weren't deadly diseases, they now had medicine for all the diseases. Is it okay to exploit children from broken homes? Is it okay? Back then, police, everyone turned the other eye. And then on top of it, what they did is they'd say, "You don't have jurisdiction." Epstein goes and gets an island, right? And what is the law on the island? Do you want to know something? I think, and I've thought about this a lot. The Central Intelligence Agency and other government agencies like to recruit people that have activities that are illegal so they can threaten them with prison time. So there's this entrapment thing. I just thought about this because it used to be most of CIA's recruits were gay people because it used to be illegal to be gay. Now, I know this is kind of like the stretch that people are having right now over the Roe versus Wade. How do you associate Roe versus Wade with the rights to gay marriage? How do you associate it with the moral high ground? How do you associate it with, oh, well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do? Well, back in the 70s, 13-year-olds were having statutory relations. They can't consent. Children cannot consent. If you're 13 or 14 and you look like you're 20 because you're fully grown and you can get pregnant, then why not lure expensive people in positions of power to blackmail them and get yourself a good old boy network? Well, why not? Now, so this is like the Roe versus Wade thing, right? I'm talking to you about my impressions about the law and also about the sociological and economical um, interdisciplinary historical trends that influence the decision making on this. So the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, used to recruit gay people by catching them and then holding it over their head. So anyway, they purposely took they resorted to, this is what I had read somewhere. I wish I had the but it just came to my mind when I'm thinking about this. So predominantly girls were back then, they were told that it's a new world, it's a new day, women got the vote, you can dress how you want, and uh, throw off those shackles of religion. These religions are nonsense. They even had a case about saluting a flag, and I forget that case. It's a constitutional law case, and basically, the certain religions, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they do not believe in saying "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America," and we're in America, and it's a public school, and they're going to sue the government for having to. They even had a case where they had people pretend to be devil worshippers and sue the government, atheists. I don't think this was an atheist, but basically there's this inclusion, exclusion, in-group, out-group. It's a sociological phenomenon. So what can we learn from all this stuff? First of all, do we have a right to privacy in our medical records and our psychological records? Well, there's a HIPAA law, right? But how private is it? How private is it really? If someone is in a civil custody case, let's take Alex Jones, for example. Alex Jones gets a psychological evaluation by an evaluator that's working with the court, and the evaluator says that he has narcissist personality disorder and he's delusional. I think that's what I read. It was a while back. Let's go check. The psychology of why. Okay, Dr. Alex Jones. Here it is. Do you think that Alex Jones has a right to privacy? Do you think he has this? It's one opinion. Well, what is this narcissist personality disorder? Well, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I will tell you that it is a borderline personality disorder, and it basically, they'll give you some tests, different tests, and they'll make an evaluation. Sometimes they don't even know you that well, and they'll make an evaluation based on what other people are saying. And they'll say, well, this person has delusions. They have very low self-esteem. They try to make up for it with this grandiose crud. Now, they could be wrong, right? So, okay, why is this out in the public? Isn't that his private HIPAA law? Is he a public figure or a private figure? So, does he have a right to privacy? And what does this say about people that don't want to share their mental health? or they don't even believe they have a mental health problem. And, you know, the diagnostic manuals change from year to year. Back in the 1970s, if you were gay, you had a mental disorder. They said that you needed therapy. Okay? I'm just putting it out here because a lot of people are connecting gay marriage rights, right to privacy, prosecution, ex post facto laws, all with, here, you can explore the 70s right here. The decision to remove homosexuality from the DSM 20 years later. 20 years later. I don't know when it went in, when it went out. I just heard this in my travels, okay, because I had to learn about things to do with the law. I had to learn about the intersection of law with health psychology. I had to read the Belmont report. I had to take a class in ethics. And the Belmont report caused this twins experiment with Jewish children that were being used. Belmont report. They had triplets, twins, and they had a Jewish adoption agency. And of course, when Roe versus Wade came out, they had less children up for adoption to experiment with and put under the glass, if you will, the microscope. So there's an intersection of a lot of different things. Let's say you go into therapy and you tell the therapist, "Oh, you know, I'm really depressed. I had this procedure. I didn't want to do it. This guy forced me. It was my uncle. I was 12, and I grew faster. People thought I was older, but I wasn't. I was really only 12." And so this whole thing is about ethics. And why did the Belmont report come out? It came out partly due to efforts by Congressman Leo Ryan and others on unethical experiments being conducted, and this Jim Jones thing. And basically, they did investigations of these operatives, these psychological operatives, these experiments, these prison experiments, MK Ultra, things like that. Now, you could say, oh, this person that has this free radio station is not getting with the program. And he is not agreeing with the narrative, and so on and so forth. You know what's really funny? He gets custody of all of his children, and supposedly he's not all there. So if somebody has this, they're going to be really abusive. Really abusive and do a lot of damage to children. In most cases. So what can we learn from all of this? Are your rights to privacy completely protected? No, they're not. And yes, they can probably get your records, your medical records, if a court goes to the place where you had this done. Like, for example, they could go to Planned Parenthood, if that's where you went, and they could subpoena records. I don't know if they'd give it to them, but, or maybe you went to a high-end private doctor. Well, how far back does the doctor have to keep records? And oh, gee, the records might be missing. But Um, let's see. So right now we are moving toward a state where people are up in arms over Roe versus Wade, but they don't realize that. Here, hang on, my mouse dropped. I have a cordless mouse here. All right, so so what does Borson say? It's a backward step for the people in the United States. Did Roe versus Wade really get entirely turned over? What exactly does this ruling mean at common law? They already took the right away for federal agencies to pay Planned Parenthood money for these. They used to pay for it. Poor people have to pay for it out of their own pocket, is what I understand. So, I think one of the best laws was Gideon versus Wainwright. Actually, it's Anoya's. So this is a petty thief in Florida. You have a right to an attorney. Yeah, that's if it's a federal crime. Well, guess what? They changed the law. Now states have to provide you with an attorney. Even for petty theft. They have to provide legal counsel to indigent defendants. Okay? 1963. Anyway, so what I've got to say here is that a lot of people are getting sensationalized over this, and there's a lot of stuff that's been going on for a long time. So let's okay, so online medical records could be used to put women in jail under new abortion laws. Now, I want to tell you something about having things online and advancements. There's an organization called the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and they believe that you should have a right to privacy. But when it comes to free speech, security, they have their own opinions. Okay, so this has got a lot of lawyers on it. Let's see what they have to say. Today's decision deprives millions of people of a fundamental right. It also underscores the importance of fair and meaningful protections for data privacy. Everyone deserves to have strong controls over the collection and the use of information, and they necessarily leave behind as they go about their normal activities. Yada, yada, yada. So, what am I going to say here? I'm going to say it's none of our business what Ivanka Trump has done in the past, and she should be allowed to have a private life. And this is a lot of innuendo and insinuation in this post, and the person took it down. I think they used to be her friend. Now, I want to tell you something else. Records get lost and destroyed. Stuff gets lost in cyberspace. Fires happen, floods happen, backup copies fail, crud gets hacked, people get doxxed. What does it all mean? Well, I'll tell you what it all means. Some people feel like they should be able to get in there and get in your business and that they have some sort of moral obligation to do that. Because why? Because why? 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 I don't know. So anyway, in the meantime, I just want to say, I'm going to tell you that stay calm, keep calm, carry on. You're not going to get people to change their mind by being hysterical. You're only going to wind up hurting yourself. Because if you lose your cool, it can come back to bite you. And I know a lot of people are outraged right now. I can see it. I'm hearing it. I'm seeing it. But this is just one little drip, drip, drip in a slow leak, if you will. And it's an opinion. When does the do you really have privacy anyway, right? Do you really have privacy anyway? You want to have everything online. You want to have records that can be hacked. Oh, but it's convenient. I don't have to carry it from place to place. And if there's a fire or a flood, it's up there on the net forever. Anyway, guys, I don't know that it's really even up there forever because of how the internet works. But a lot of people don't know that. So I wouldn't even worry too much about ex post facto laws. What I would be worried about is what laws we already have in place. And also why certain things are allowed to go on with children that are not age appropriate. And why people are treated like property and things like that. You know, there's a lot of questions we could be asking ourselves, and I'm going to leave it at that, okay? Now, I don't know what reason a person would want to be a lawyer. For example, Biden is a lawyer, right? And what does Biden do with his law degree? He becomes a politician. Why does he become a politician? He wants to change the laws. Why does he want to change the laws? I don't know. What does he believe in? Well, he's taken a stand on the Democratic Party, and he's an older gentleman, and how old is he? He's in his 70s or something? 42. Does that make, yeah, I think that's, oh my God, he's almost 80. Let me see something. What's his age? Yeah, you guys, he's getting up there, dude. Okay, actually, I was going to do a video on age-related dementia. This does not have to happen. Now look at this thing, Violence Against Women Act. You know, if you're going to be forcing women to, it should be Violence Against Children Act too. But anyway, guys, I don't know what to tell you other than a lot of people have different opinions, and they're also making statements and dragging people into this that really don't need to be dragged into this. And as if Ivanka Trump is running for president or anything, her family's being investigated, and she has children, for gosh sakes. Have a little decency, right? Did I spell it wrong? Okay. Former friend alleges she had it when she was younger, when she was a child. And Donald Trump Jr.'s tweet about the overturning has Twitter seething. What is that? I didn't hear about that. So basically, the Trumps are in the middle of this, and I guess people are really panicking. Trump's not even in office, and his legacy is continuing, and why didn't Biden stop it? So, you tell me. You tell me. So anyway, as far as the law goes, the law is not always that straightforward. There's going to be exceptions to the rules. You're going to need to know the common law. You're going to need to know the constitutional law, and you're going to need to know the state law that you're in, and also issues about jurisdiction. Who has jurisdiction? Well, criminals that have these conspire to have these criminal enterprises like child slavery, trafficking, human trafficking, and what does this mean for children that are trafficked, especially females? So there's a lot of questions that come up, and I want to thank you for your time and attention to this, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. They're not supposed to have ex post facto laws, but if you really think you have that much of a right to privacy, you know, a lot of people were shocked when Trump had an attorney and his the exception to the attorney-client privilege. There's all these exceptions to the law, and people just think they know the law. I think I spelled that wrong. Okay. Come on. Come on. Statutory exceptions to attorney-client privilege. Crime fraud exceptions. Pursuant to Law 90.5024A, there is no attorney-client privilege. Crime fraud exception. Blah, blah, blah. So, you see, the law is very complicated, and these exams are super hard, and they're hard for a reason, because there's so many ways to interpret it, and what is the current standing, what's the current law, and how is it interpreted. Now that the Constitutional Supreme Court of the United States has decided that the states do have a right to make a law that's stricter than the laws in the states. Okay, well, thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.